Hello and welcome back to the Full Fat Podcast, coming to you in slightly less than 1080p. But wait, Matt finally got a HD webcam. He has joined the likes of Charlie and Teri in using HD webcams to make the Full Fat Podcast as good as it can be. I still feel like every week I would like to say it's coming to you in less than 1080p, but we'll find out next week. Charlie, Teri, how are you? What have you been up to? What have you seen this week?
Mr. Charlie Lily, would you like to go first?
First of all, I'm magic, and second of all, I have been watching many great movies that you know about, Mr. Whittle, because you've been watching them with me, haven't you? And that is because this week, me and Matt sat through and watched pretty much the entirety of the Alien franchise, haven't we, Matt?
We have. Even the bad ones.
Wow. How was that?
It's been a blast. An absolute blast. Honestly, it actually made me realise how much I almost forgot how much I love the Alien movies. Like, even the bad ones. Like, they have parts where I'm like, I'm still having a blast. Like, None of them are, particularly, really dull to the point where I can't watch them, with maybe the exception of maybe Alien 3. But yeah, no, I mean, they've all got some sort of fun in them. I mean, it's been an absolute blast watching them, and it's made me realise sort of what ones I was like, okay, I remember that being okay. For example, like Covenant, and then rewatching it and be like, no, that's actually really fun. I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, I definitely think marathoning them gave a very different vibe to all of them. Like Prometheus, we watched that, didn't we? And then we immediately went into Alien Covenant. Yeah. And it's like, even though Prometheus, I think, has the same level of filmmaking, the script for Covenant is so much tighter, and you feel that from the opening. Yes, definitely. It gets stuck in straight away.
So what is the best Alien movie?
Ooh. Well, Teri, you're going to find out next week on Full Fat Videos when I release my official Alien ranking.
Oh, so I can't get a sneak peek, a sneak preview of the number one?
Well, I mean, let's be honest, it's either going to be Alien or Aliens.
Literally, yeah.
And they're different movies, you have to remember that. Otherwise you end up in awful faux pas in front of your whole company.
Well, if you're an Aliens filthy casual like Teri is, then I guess it's easy to do.
I don't even think you could call me a filthy casual, because I've never seen them. Except Prometheus yesterday that we watched, which...
You gotta watch.
I just don't think they're my cup of tea. Like, I like going out into space to other civilizations. I love Star Wars, Star Trek, those types of things. The alien monster thing doesn't really do it for me. The horror...
like more... like alien races, civilizations, and it's more like Star Trek, where it's about
more hopeful.
And I'd much rather watch a thriller than a straight out horror. So.
It does upset me though that you've only seen bad Doctor Who episodes, and then you come in to watch Prometheus, and that's your first Alien movie. That is a tragedy.
Okay, I'll watch the first one. I'll watch Alien. We'll give it a go if you can watch it again.
Oh, totally.
Okay, let's do it.
Across the next week, I'm going to be watching bits and bobs from all of them repeatedly. So, I mean, doing a straight run again, particularly on the first film, would be fantastic.
Let's do it.
Also, there's loads of different cuts of the movies, so I'm going to have to watch essentially different films anyway.
Is there a Snyder cut?
There's an assembly cut.
It's
close. Quite as
A
dramatic.
Snyderly cut?
Sheriff Ridley. Sheriff Scott. Sheriff Cameron.
Oh no, that
Sheriff Fincher. Sheriff Perez-Junette. Sheriff
so did they just get
Anderson.
Why are there lots of big directors doing different movies?
Well, I think it sort of comes from a type. Like, do you know what I mean? I think we sort of look at blockbusters as being something that's, a TV director's chance to jump up into the big leagues because of stuff like the MCU in the last 10 years. But you go back to stuff like Aliens. And then Alien 3, Fox clearly wanted each movie to have a completely different feel and vibe, and go. And they wanted to go with an exciting young director. I mean, you were saying, weren't you, Charlie? Cameron, he'd written Aliens at that point as he was going to go into Terminator, which came out just 2 years before Aliens. And they said to him, if you can direct the shit out of the Terminator, then we'll let you have Aliens. Yeah. And then with Fincher, he'd been a stonking music video director, and that was his first feature. And of course, the Fincher that we know now,
Our Lord and Saviour.
Film bros, unite! Oh yeah,
I'm not putting myself as part of this. I'm just closing my doors. So.
But yeah, you reminded me of the fact that you were watching Prometheus. I mentioned last week on the podcast that you missed a Good Doctor episode and then you came in on a bad one, and some people at home were guessing, weren't they?
Yes, I had them up. But we've had I can't remember what they're called actually. I wish I could remember off the top of my head, but I don't know the episode, so I can't. So I'm scrambling now to get on the Full Fat podcast.
I recall you saying there was a couple of comments that people thought I was talking about Heaven Sent and Hell Bent.
Yes.
I think that's a good answer. Although I would argue, since I did say they're not true, it's not a true multi-part story, I do think Hellbent, Heaven Sent, and indeed Face the Raven, really, it is a three-parter. I look at it as a three-parter, even though they're very different episodes. I'm saying this, by the way, to the audience, not to you guys, because I know you don't care.
Yes, of course.
But yeah, the episodes I was talking about...
Wait, were... somebody guessed them. I'm trying desperately to find him so we can give him credit for guessing them correctly.
I remember you telling me, Terry, his name was Jack. And Jack, you nailed it because you correctly guessed it was Day of the Doctor and Time of the Doctor. So, big props to you. And it was indeed that, wasn't it, Terry?
Yes, Jack Larmore.
Jack Larmore.
There's an R. Larmour. Jack, comment this week how you want your name to be pronounced, and next week I'm going to pronounce it because you need your credit.
Yep.
Good job.
5 Gallifreyan stars.
Should we do what I've been watching this week? Because I did a bit of a solo watch.
Was it Solo: A Star Wars Story?
No, I did that ages ago. We already spoke about that.
Yeah, we did. We have to mention it every podcast.
I feel like the mic is hiding poor Greedo. He's just popping out there. But he's just hiding behind the mic.
He's getting greedy for screen time.
Greedo wants some screen time. No, Greedo, it's my screen time.
So what did you watch, Tez?
I watched a new series on Netflix called Shadow and Bone. I watched the whole thing. It was fun. The whole series, the first season, if that makes sense. It's based on the Grisha-verse books, which are like some fantasy novels, and they create this entire world, and this series is like the sequel to them. I think it could be young adult.
The sequel series?
Yes. The original books, I think they could be. I don't know if they strictly are. I think they are YA, yeah. But no, like there are certain like people in the universe in this world that have like sciencey based powers. Like everything's based in like what they call Grisha science, and these people are called Grisha. But like some of them have elemental powers, and some of them have like healing powers, and some of them can like change your appearance. Like there's one Grisha who goes and like takes away like all the main characters like cuts and scars and like puts like makeup on her and stuff, like using this magic.
Okay.
And then there's a type of Grisha where there's like shadow darklings who summon the darkness.
Yeah.
And then there's the myth of the sun summoner, who can summon the light. And essentially they have to defeat this like they have to get through and vanquish this big, what they call the fold. So a big part of the land is just engulfed in darkness, and there's like these like these like people who've been turned into these horrible dragon things who like get you in the darkness, but it like separates the land, so people have to cross it to like get supplies.
I've heard of this.
Yeah, it's so good, and like 98% of the cast is cast fantastically, sorry. And I think that it's a really, really great example of like how we should be injecting diversity into casts without making a big deal of it.
Okay, so who made it? Netflix. Oh,
I think
interesting. That's
it's
good.
a Netflix series. I don't think it's got anybody with a big name sort of to it, and there's no like superstars in it, if that makes sense.
Right,
like there's just people who haven't done loads and loads of stuff,
but it's got a wide range of characters, great powers. I always like the kind of convention that the evil spreads like a sickness over the land. Do you know what I mean? I like that Is it Princess Mononoke we watched?
Yes.
Is that the one where that happens? That creature, it's like the black tar creature, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic design.
That's great.
I recently saw a TikTok. I think Terry might have showed me, and it was this dog, right? And it had like really long. I don't know if it had it looks almost like dreads, but I think it was like its natural hair. But as it would bound towards the camera,
everything
it
was
moved. Yeah, everything was like pulsating, but it looked like the gooey creature from Princess Mononoke. And when Terry first showed it to me, I was like, ugh, because it was obviously coming towards camera, and I was like, oh no, it's a cute dog.
I don't want to get you in trouble on the podcast, but I don't think I've seen that TikTok.
Oh really?
So who's
I feel
been
like
showing
I've
you
seen
these?
that.
Must
Maybe
have been
Charlie
my other
showed
girlfriends.
it. Yeah, must have been. It was Greedo.
It was Greedo. Greedy Greedo. Speaking of Star Wars, we watched The Bad Batch this morning, didn't we?
We did indeed.
What did you think of Episode 3, Replacements?
Better than the last one.
Yeah, I think it's the strongest episode so far.
I agree, I think it's the strongest episode because I think it had the neat character work of the first episode. It had some interesting plot machinations, and it was 30 minutes as opposed to an hour and 10, which I think is a bit too long for this sort of episodic journey.
Yeah. Particularly something there's 16 episodes per season. I'm quite surprised that I'm still shocked that we got an hour and 10-minute episode for the first episode of The Bad Batch, yet we can't get anything past 40 minutes on The Mandalorian. I'm confused by it. I don't know. Someone maybe it can explain to me that.
I think it might be a resource thing because you know it's kind of a bit. You can do anything within the world of animation because you have animators who can create whatever you want. Whereas in The Mandalorian, if you want certain things, you have to film them.
Well, I was going to say, is it because they have the sprites already from? Do you know what I mean? They just have to add on top and add better lighting or more details to each character if they have them from the Clone Wars sort of thing.
From a business standpoint, having a show about clones is so clever because you just use the same guy over and over and the same voice.
That is
it's
true.
so cheap. Love it.
It's don't Pixar have that universal person that they stretch and move to create loads of people?
Yeah.
Well, they used to back in the day. It's like Lucasfilm. They don't even have to do that step. They're just he's got the clone armor on. Right, copy paste.
Change his hair a little bit. Give him some facial hair. We're good.
That's a very good point.
Yeah, I think the length of that first episode speaks to me how over the last 13 years we've gone from the animated side of Star Wars being supplementary to being almost the centerpiece, and I think more importantly, in a time where the fan base has been so divided for the better part of 5-6 years now, the animated stuff I find is the stuff that brings people together, and I think Disney are aware of that, which I think that's why they've really pushed this and given us a longer episode than The Mandalorian. They know this is more likely to not divide people.
It's true.
And I find that as well on YouTube. If I ever do a video about live action Star Wars, it's no matter what I talk about, whether it's the sequel trilogy, the prequel trilogy, the OT, there's a big divide. If I talk about anything animated, there's even an animated video I did on the Maul Ahsoka duel, and I spoke about The Last Jedi for quite a bit. And I remember at the time thinking, I'm making these comparisons, I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but I didn't really. And I was so shocked, and I think it's because it was predominantly Star Wars animation. People are way more accepting of that sphere of Star Wars.
Wonder why that is.
Just more friendly, I suppose.
Well, I think as well, the sequel trilogy became so wrapped up in so many expectations and then so many mystery boxes that didn't pay off, whereas Clone Wars is obviously, you think about that generation of people that are watching the sequel trilogy now, they grew up with Clone Wars, it's always been there for them, it's always delivered. Obviously you get some duff episodes, but in terms of quality, and also it's never betrayed them. Do you know what I mean? I think the sequel trilogy is such tainted blood now.
But it's to do with the expectation of the crowd, isn't it? Everyone was expecting the sequel trilogy to lift up Star Wars and to bring it back into, well, it was never out of the zeitgeist, but bring it back, if that makes sense. And so many people had huge expectations, whereas when we've got these animated series, people are just oh, they're for kids, it doesn't matter if it's bad, it does it's not that big a deal, do you know what I mean? So I feel the expectations are very different.
Yeah. Clone Wars was once the supplement, and now I feel like it's almost given more fanfare than the live action space at the moment.
Absolutely. And how do you guys feel about the fact we've had a lot of comments saying we should finish Clone Wars before we start the Bad Batch?
To that I say yes. No, joking. No,
I didn't know what to say.
I understand why it might be a bit jarring, but at the same time, I see Bad Batch as its own thing, and whilst it's coming out of the moment, I want to review it week to week and really delve into it. And also, I think you should be able to understand it completely without fully seeing all of
its own thing. Then it should.
Like I'm aware we've got a lot of backstory with Echo to fill in. Obviously, they actually go into it in the Clone Wars, that whole thing of him getting captured and getting tortured and turned into a cyborg and all that sort of stuff. So we've got all that to come, which I think is going to be really exciting. But I think in terms of as two distinct expressions and two distinct series, I want to trace their narratives as they go, and I don't really care that the Bad Batch comes after, because it's like saying to me like, oh, what, like, why are you watching the prequels and watching like the sequel trilogy? It's like, do you know what I mean? Like, they're two different eras of Star Wars, and they're supposed to be.
We got the original trilogy before we got the prequel trilogy, so
yeah,
like all Star Wars is kind of jumbled, and
exactly.
Clone Wars isn't even in chronological order itself, so. And it's really
but that's what
really
they're saying, isn't it? Is a lot of people want us to sort of go through in that order, but I just want to I want to take each season as it came from a production standpoint. Do you know what I mean? It's like you can tell that these episodes were made together, and then I think next week we're going to finish series 1 because we reviewed quite a lot this week, which we're going to go into. And next week we'll finish the Ryloth arc and the final episode, and then we're into season 2, which I think is exciting because we get to see, you know, what did Dave Filoni and the team do? It's been a year since season 1. We're in 2009 now. What have they done to sort of up the ante? I think that's going to be really exciting.
Definitely. I agree.
And you can't get that from watching it in chronological order.
Definitely.
No,
100%.
you're right.
What do you guys think about the, in my opinion, the best scene in the Bad Batch so far, which was with Crosshair having that dispute with the other, well, no, he's not a clone. He's the trooper that they hired, who didn't want to kill those civilians.
I loved all that, and I've always found it a bit wishy-washy in Star Wars canon how they went from clones to stormtroopers, and they've always kind of touched upon it in sort of a sense of they realised conscription was better. They want to get like the hearts and minds of imperial planets, and they want to get their children to turn over and fight. That's really interesting, but I feel like the Bad Batch is finally getting a chance to really delve into that from a Kamino perspective as well. I never tire of seeing the PT and OT merge and seeing Tarkin talk to the Kaminoans, the Kamino people,
Kaminoans or something like that. They say it kind of weird.
Yeah, and seeing them in turn be like, we need to come up with a new clone batch. We need to make sure we're still relevant. That's all lovely. And I think to typify that with the rivalry between the human soldier that's been conscripted as part of this sort of like test team and Crosshair, who is a born and bred clone, was really nice. And to see it come to that head in that scene, which was quite dark. Did you guys think that was quite dark?
I think so too.
Yeah. And they did it really well. Sorry.
I was just saying, the woman was like, I'm not gonna talk. And then he's like, well, if you're not gonna talk, you're gonna get killed. So what are you gonna say to her?
The way that they did it in such a brutal way, but not right in front of your eyes. Like when they killed all the people, you could hear like the fire and the gunshots and how like brutal that would have been. And like it's just enough to imagine the worst in your own brain. But as a kid, you're not going to think of it like that. So I think it's been done really, really cleverly. But the whole conversation between like whether they're going to take the clones or the conscription makes me feel like Tarkin's like a CEO of a company, and they're like, "Are we going to stick with the in-house team or are we going to get the lesser outsourcers?" And it just makes me laugh. It
does feel like that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
'Cause he's standing there with all the toys, isn't he? Meanwhile, he's got someone on either shoulder going, "We could go with these, or we could go with this, or the benefits of this." Yeah,
so
funny. No, I really like all that stuff, and I feel like it feels like a natural progression of episode 1, and now in retrospect, episode 2 feels a bit like a fillery bottle episode. The best stuff, I think, has been the whole clone contingent and what's going to happen.
It's been more interesting than actually following the Bad Batch. Like, I'm much more interested in knowing how they get from the Republic to the Empire. and seeing that progression. I'm much more interested in that than seeing what happens to the Bad Batch. And maybe that's because we haven't watched Clone Wars and we don't have a relationship with them yet.
I think it's because, in my personal opinion, other than the first episode, I think the A plots for these episodes with the Bad Batch have been very filler, whilst the B plots, like the B plot this week of Tarkin deciding what to do and Crosshair proving his worth and killing that guy, like, that was all the best stuff of the episode, but that was kind of like the secondary plot.
Yeah.
So I'm hoping as the series goes on, and obviously Crosshair is going to find the Bad Batch in his crosshairs as we go on. So I think as the B plot becomes more relevant, it's only going to get more exciting.
How many episodes have we got?
We've got 13 left.
Yeah, 13 left.
Really? I thought it was much shorter.
It's going to end up overlapping with Loki. That's how long it's going on for. So eventually we're going to be reviewing Loki and Bad Batch.
What am I going to have in the background? I've switched my Captain America shield for
You're going to have a shield
lightsaber.
and the saber, yeah.
Nice. I like that. I can do that.
On the note of, you reminded me by looking at the lightsaber, I was thinking while we were watching it today, I do think something has been lost in animation, losing the lightsabers, because I think it's very easy to have this like frenetic, finessed movement that's really enjoyable to watch in animation with lightsaber battles, but I think like militaristic gunplay, like, do you know what I mean? Like, it's harder to make it exciting with cartoon characters. It doesn't it doesn't have the frenetic intensity that a live action gunfight would have. And it doesn't have the finesse of a lightsaber duel. So I'm wondering, as we go on, how they're going to keep making the gunfights exciting.
I mean, they chucked in some flamethrowers this week, or they did have flamethrowers, didn't they? I feel like I've gotten all the flamethrowers that we've seen in the last few days mixed up in my head, because there was one in Prometheus, wasn't there?
There was.
Yeah.
So
there was.
I'm now like, have I imagined a flamethrower in Clone Wars because it was in Prometheus? But there was as well, wasn't there?
Yes, there was as well. The Prometheus scene is absolutely unforgettable because of how stupid it is. Like, the guy's just like, yeah, I'm going to sacrifice myself and willingly ask you to burn me alive. Like, he's still cognitive. I understand in that moment that he's infected and he doesn't want anyone else to get infected, but surely someone on the ship has a gun.
It was a bit dramatic.
Pop me in the head before you burn me to death. Jesus.
It's true.
Who willingly asks for that? Burn me to death. Like, I understand you want to get rid of the virus. That's great. Here's the plan. Whilst I'm dying out, I go to you, guys, shoot me in the head and then burn me. That's a very specific order. Please shoot me first.
Oh no, Charlie, we burnt him and then shot him. Just shooting his, like, crusty corpse. Like,
I think he's dead, but he still might actually be alive.
Just missing and shooting me in, like, the dick and shit. And I'm like, please just set me on fire.
back to Clone Wars.
Yes. Any summary thoughts on this week's Bad Batch? I thought it was fun. I'd like to keep going.
I think there was a really, really good part where the new squad of soldiers were talking about why they are joining the Empire, because obviously these guys have come of their own accord, haven't they? We haven't got the same thing with the clones in that they have the inhibited chips. Like, these people have come on board of their own accord, and for them to sit there and be like, you know, the Republic never did this for me, the Republic never did that for me, now with the Empire I get a fair wage, and like, everybody just wants to survive, do you know what I mean? So I can see why these people would want to join, and I thought that was like really, really clever, really well done.
Yeah, I always like it when we take it from like an Imperial perspective, and it's always almost sort of intersected with class, because the way I always see the Imperial planets is that they're close to Coruscant, they're in the inner rim, or the inner rim, the inner circle. There's the outer rim, isn't there? Then there's the inner, you know what I'm talking about, the inner rim. Let's just leave it in that awkward term. Yeah, like, I feel like those planets are quite wealthy, have a lot of resources, and Coruscant and the Empire, the rhetoric is that we spread out over these planets to sort of stop the separatists ever happening again, because we obviously we don't want war, right? We want peace. And it sort of goes from there. So it's always interesting to see, as you say, Terry, like those soldiers saying, oh, well, the Republic never did these things for me, but the Empire is strong, and the Empire gets me all these benefits. Because we always see it from the rebellion side, don't we? If you heard Luke Skywalker blew up the Death Star, and you were an Imperial, what would you say about that?
But
I like when they do that in the show. I like when they show that perspective. I think that's what kind of makes the Clone Wars and this special, is seeing, the clones are people as well, I think that's interesting. I also, I thought I did find some of the Omega stuff quite wholesome this week. Like when she went into the whole thing and she see that like electric eating monster, and
That
she
was
comes
so
out.
cool.
Yeah, it was so cool.
Very cool.
Very cool. Very cool.
Very cool.
Very cool. Very cool.
Very cool.
Very cool. Very cool.
When she comes out and like Hunter's like, "Oh, I told you not to go down. Why are you doing that?" sort of thing. And she's like,
Yeah.
"Oh, I got the gun and I didn't shoot anyone, and I got this thing that we needed." And I like seeing her sort of develop as part of the team, and I think it's quite a fun dynamic to see how these like soldiers who are like quite aggressive and only known like to kill and to hunt, to now have this like to see empathy and see not they don't have that anyway, but to have this person to sort of not nurture almost, that this person to look after or kind of understand more emotion and see things as not as war all the time. I think it's quite nice that we had that scene with Wrecker later on where he builds the bed for her after you have to pay off earlier of him trying to steal her food. I found that incredibly wholesome and just really sweet, and I like seeing that side whilst we get the kind of people being flamethrowers to death.
Yes.
I think Sorry, go on. It definitely melted like my ice cold heart towards Wrecker a tiny bit, but the rest of the episode he was still just annoying. And I've seen lots of comments, people being like, the clones are actually children, but like, put Echo and Wrecker. Is Echo the smart one?
Echo, I think, is the Echo guy.
The robot guy. We always do this.
We did this last week as well.
Yes,
Hunter's the Hunter guy.
Hunter's the Hunter guy. You should show us how you look like Hunter, Matt.
Next week, maybe.
Next week.
I'll save some excitement for next week, yeah.
Okay.
It's going to be a faff to get it out of my dressing gown now.
No, I know.
Yeah, you still got to book in that skull tattoo as well. It's coming.
Yeah.
You said about that, didn't you?
I just realised saying it's going to be a faff to get it out of my dressing gown now, I hope that didn't sound it's not safe for work.
Someone
I'm
just
talking about
tuned in.
Yeah, something in my dressing gown pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know I've seen a lot of comments about me last week saying that it felt childish, and I get that the clones are only as old as children, but like Hunter hasn't got the mentality of a child. The really smart one with the goggles hasn't got the mentality of a child. It's just Wrecker. And
That's what makes him unique, isn't it?
But it has been overdone. Like, and also, why would you want those qualities of a soldier? Like a soldier that's like, duh, I'm just gonna smash for fun. Like, why?
But they're the bad batch, aren't they? They've got like defects. And I like the dichotomy of like, oh, he's the strongest one, he's the most powerful, but he is the most emotionally stunted and he needs all this help. I do think maybe it's a bit of a cliche to have the strong guy be the dumbest one.
Yeah.
I see where you're coming from, but I do think it was worth it for that.
Yes.
The sweetness of him being like, I'm hungry, he almost takes Omega's food without thinking about it. Hunter has to be the one to go, why would you do that? That's selfish. And then for him to have that little mini arc by the end of the episode of, oh, I made you this sweet bed.
Oh, that was
and also,
nice.
But I loved how it was kind of like a tiny little cramped compartment in the ship. They don't have much, you know? But
It's true.
But what they have is theirs, and he's going to make it nice in spite of that.
And also, I do also think that he's a lot sweeter than the others. Like, even though he's the most destructive, he also seems to have the most empathy in a weird way. Like, he just needs to be shown that road, I feel like.
I
Like,
would
Hunter's
disagree.
explaining to him. Really?
Yeah,
You
I think
Hunter's doing more?
I think Hunter is the most emotionally mature because he's the leader, because he has to be.
But I think that's only because he's more intelligent, whereas I think Wrecker is learning that, and I think Wrecker has that in him already, as we've seen him making the bed. You know, Hunter didn't do that for her, and I think, and he was nervous about it. You know, he was kind of like, he was, oh, have I done something stupid? Like, he doesn't know how to deal with his emotions. Like you said, yeah, Hunter is more emotionally mature, but I don't think that necessarily means that he's more, has more empathy or sweetness, I guess.
Yeah. I could see that.
Interesting.
Should we?
Yeah, I don't know where I fall on that. I'm going to have to think.
Interesting, yeah, but I do understand. I think it's between him and Hunter. Yeah. I think my incredible mind doesn't care about anything but his incredible mind so far. But
my incredible mind.